Now, someone has asked, if you know that you're having a problem with aligning what you say with what you do, how does that impact your coaching or your parenting or your ministry or whatever? Okay, but you know it. That's the critical piece. I mean, the critical piece is that because you do know it, and by the way, all of us periodically will get misaligned. And I'm going to talk about that later as to how that works because of competing values. Okay, like right now, some of you are watching this tape, but also you have a child who has a soccer game going on, and you know you ought to be at the sidelines of that. Okay, that's a competing value, and it's a good thing trumped by a good thing. Okay, kind of thing, and it can create misalignment if depending. If you know that is the main thing, that means you're self-aware, then you can start navigating it successfully. So you could actually say to your coach, you know, I think I've been incongruent with you. I think I've been telling you this, but then there's a part of me that's pulling in the exact opposite direction. To tell you the truth, that will build even stronger trust between you and that person. Because that person already, probably at some unconscious level, has picked up the incongruence, the misalignment with you. The fact that you put it on the table between the two of you. You know, I realize that I've been telling you, I've been preaching empowerment, I want to empower you, and yet I've really started noticing that every time you take some initiative, I try to undercut you. I realize that, and can we talk about that, and maybe you can help me with that kind of an issue. Let me tell you, your trust level is going to, with that person is going to go north fast, as opposed to pretending that you're doing just fine. That's one problem with the way our brains work. We are constantly, we have a lot of competing values. I'm going to talk about that more when we talk about change and how we change ourselves. Which often then leads to a lot of incongruent behavior where I'm saying things and then doing other things and all that kind of thing. The trouble is that also when I'm incongruent internally, it creates anxiety because somewhere down inside I realize that I'm not aligned. Unfortunately, if I'm not aware of it and can work on it consciously, what I'll do is tell myself a lie internally. And in other words, clean up the mess of my incongruence and continue living incongruently, and people will pick it up more and more. He says one thing but does another. And you know lots of people like this, I would assume. Hopefully it's not you, but people that you really move away from because maybe they espouse kingdom values, but you know the bottom line is what they really value. And you see that over and over again. I see it in nonprofits. I see it in Christian work. I see it all over the place. That people say, my brother taught at a Christian school, and they started having trouble with attendance, with people sending their kid there, which meant that the finances got shaky. So the board got together and decided they would start compromising who they would let into the school, which meant they started lending it in Hindus and this and that, which compromised their statement of faith. And so what they had is a competing value there. We're trying to take a stand in a particular way, but we also have to keep this institution open and running. So they became incongruent. And what happened, of course, is it secularized the thing, and you probably find that within the YMCA and a whole lot of other organizations that had a particular standard. But then, and often it's financial realities show up, and people then start backing off of their faith stand, become incongruent, but often will tell themselves a lie that, well, we got to keep our doors open because we're doing such good work, which may be true, but what the unintended consequences are in the long run is that they're compromising their message, and pretty soon their institution becomes secular. So you find this a lot, this congruence, this alignment, this whole sense of trust. You can find it with individuals, you can find it with organizations. You can find it with nations for that matter. You know, are they aligned? Is the leadership aligned? Do they say what they do? Okay? Foundational is trust. And you've got to, and this is why I'm emphasizing this now when it comes to coaching relationship, you've got to set in place a trusting relationship, which means, let's go back to it again, you need to be well-defined, you need to be self-aware so that you understand when you are becoming inconsistent, where that might possibly be. And if you have teenagers around the house, they'll be more than happy to weigh in with you where that is, or your spouse, one or the other. Teenagers are the best, though, I think, because spouses sometimes, you know, there's other competing values for them. Teenagers will tell you, Dad, you're saying this, but you're doing this. And they are usually incredibly good at pointing up where we're incongruent. And unfortunately, I mean, kidding aside, you find child after child leaving the faith when they leave the home because of the incongruence. Because they heard their parents saying one thing, but they really knew that the driving passion of their parents was money or status or whatever, and it didn't have to do with kingdom values. And the kids knew that, you know. So when they got off to college, they chung, you know, the religious thing. They didn't see it as value add to their life in any particular way. The parents just did it for social reasons or whatever, so they become secular. And not that all, I'm not saying that all kids who do that, that's the reason, but it is certainly absolutely critical. So knowing this alignment piece in your own life is very, very important as you establish then this relationship with the people that you're coaching. Now, if you look at the rest of these notes, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's an interesting book out there. It's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And he talks about how teams operate, and I put some of those notes in here for you. What happens like when you have the absence of trust, that you conceal weaknesses and don't ask for help or feedback and hesitate to offer help outside your own areas of expertise and jump to conclusions and that kind of thing, as opposed to when trust is present. Now, the interesting thing about trust, again, is, and this is why it's so critical to grasp the concepts, is that it's so foundational. In other words, once trust is lost, all other bets are off. Because, again, the backside of our mind, the deepest parts of our brain, the part we share with everybody else says, if I don't trust you, I'm not safe. If I'm not safe, I'm not following you. So if you're trying to coach me and I don't trust you, I'm not following you. If you're trying to parent me and I don't trust you, I'm not following you. If you're trying to be my minister and I don't trust you, I'm not following you. I mean, that's why it's absolutely critical. If I'm married to you and I don't trust you, I'm not following you. So in every relationship, you will find at its core and foundation this whole issue of trust. It's absolutely foundational. Then these other 4 points that Lencioni talks about build on each other, and we'll conclude with this, and that is, if I can trust you, then I can enter into conflict with you and be safe in conflict. We're going to talk about that, I think, next, and how important conflict is and how dangerous it is. But I trust you so I can enter into conflict with you, okay? And because I enter into conflict with you and I can express my opinion, that means when we come up with a decision, that I can be bought into it, because even if it's not my opinion, I've been able to voice my opinion. So I'm not just complying, I'm actually really in on this decision. So now I can commit to the decisions we made. I trust you. I can fight with you and express my opinions. Then I can commit. We can hold each other accountable, and then we can establish results. That's how those things work in a team environment, but they work in any environment, actually. Always, though, always, and I'll say it one more time before I stop, and that is, the trust is foundational. And you may be very unconsciously expressing mistrust, and you may not even know it, but it'll be picked up. And like I said, ask your teenagers and they'll let you know where that's happening.